it doesn't matter who I'm talking to. It doesn't matter where I'm at in the world. If I have a story that I feel needs to get made, it's going to get made.
I believe it's taken you over 4 years to make and release Off Rip.
Mm-hmm.
Why was making this film so important to you?
Making this film, I think, was important to me. The same reason any film I make is important to me is just because at the time I'm making it, I'm inspired to make it. It feels like it has gravity in my own life, and it feels like it could be something that could benefit other people and impact them. And it was kind of a win-win for me because it was the first movie of its kind, being that it's about skimboarding. There's never been one before. And it was a movie I originally had written because when I was living in that town, working on those on our little indie films, I was just thinking about, what's something that I can make, on a doable budget that takes place here that we can do. And I came across kind of this idea of making a skimboarding film. And I think it was important to me at the time just because it was what I felt like I could do and take the next steps in my career. And I also found a through line and a message that made sense to me that was important enough to tell.
And you believed in the main character? Does that main character have parts of you in it?
Oh, the main character is like fully based off of me. Yeah, I mean, it's a little different in the sense of I didn't grow up as a skimboarder. I more so skateboarded and, played football. But I loved the beach, and I grew up on the beach. And the character is heavily infused with my own persona in it, and it was not a stretch at all. Outside of a couple different family dynamics, my mom always says, "Oh, did you make Jan based off of me?" Which is the mom character, and I'm like, no, she's not based on you. She's actually based off of such and such. And then obviously, and I always say that the little brother character is the little brother that I never had because I always begged my mom and dad for a little brother growing up. And so I didn't get to have one, but I got to have one in Off Rip.
Imagine if you were going to teach a class on producing a movie to someone who's a group of people, let's say, that have never done a movie. How would you take us through the whole process?
Is this just as a producer or is this as an artist?
As a producer.
Okay, if I were teaching people how to produce a movie just as the producer role, I would say do some research and find the most talented artist, director, DP combo that you can find where you live and watch all their stuff, take a meeting with them, tell them that you believe in them, and tell them that you want to work with them and see if it's a good fit, and then start putting pieces together. Well, what are you guys doing next? Oh, I have this idea about this. Great. You need like locations for that. You could help them start looking for locations. You could help them, start finding the wardrobe. Start, finding anything that they need creatively to bring it to life. Whether if it's a short film, it'd be much easier, of course. And if it's a fundraising thing, well, that's a different story. But yeah, producing, I would say just see how you can add value, how you can help. A lot of people want producer credits and they don't really produce. They just don't really do much at all, honestly. Which is interesting when people ask for producer credits and, it's like, well, what did you do? I think the biggest thing is just to add fuel to the fire. If you're not the writer, director, if you're not the main storyteller, if you're a producer, then it's really just, you have to see yourself as a supportive, position, a person who's here to elevate the story, and the person who's creating it, who's at the head of it, you're in support, in service to that story. And so, yeah, just see what you can do to make things happen every day,
What are the essentials to every production?
In what way? Technically, or like?
Well, it could be technical. It could also be working with people skills.
Oh, okay. Yeah, in terms of with people for productions, I would say the essentials are realizing that yes, there are heads of departments and people are at certain positions in the hierarchy, which I think should be respected to a certain extent, but also at the same time, everyone is on the same level. No one is above anybody. I don't care if it's the star actor or the PA. You know, yes, you have to accommodate certain things. Maybe if someone's agent or the director maybe is a certain way, sure. I just don't like when people just think they're above people. Honestly, I really don't like that. I think walking in gratitude is the greatest thing you can do. Whenever I'm on a set and I'm making a film, the amount of times, and I say it genuinely, I don't force it. The amount of times I look around at people and I say, honestly, thank you guys so much for doing this. You're doing such a great job. Like, bro, the sound, it sounds amazing. Or, you know, thank you for carrying that heavy gear. I know, and I think one of the reasons I'm so grateful is because I've done everything. I've been a grip on sets and I've lifted the heavy stands and the sandbags and the whole thing and carried everything out of the truck. And when I've made my own productions, you know, I've done everything. So I know what it's like to do the different jobs. But I think if everyone sees each other as an equal, as a partner, as a teammate, I think that's the key to a successful production.
If you were teaching a class on producing, what are some mistakes that you would want to impart to your students to stay away from, you know, that you kind of learned?
In just producing?
In just producing.
Yeah, the thing is I've never just been a producer, so I would have to think about that.
Well, then we could, oh, sorry.
Yeah, well, mistakes, I guess. Yeah, I think one of the biggest things I've realized in co-productions when I'm working with other people, whether it's another writer or if I'm bringing a different director on, which I've done in the past, I think you have to realize that people are going to have their own input and their own creative say, and you have to establish, like I said, there should be a hierarchy, right? And I think it should be established. Communication should be very clear. So if anyone is, you know, overstepping or going, you know, beyond what their position is, you know, that can be addressed, right? I think that's one of the biggest mistakes in how sets fall apart is if, you know, for example, we've had issues on our, not issues, but on our latest films, you know, sometimes the DP, Jake, and myself as a director, and this time was different because I had a co-director who I was in support of because it was her original script and she brought me on. And so I told her from the start, I am your co-director. I'm supporting you because if we don't establish that you're the head of it, it'll get muddy at some point. So establishing that, the hierarchy, and being, if people can't, like, aren't willing to kind of submit to that. I mean, you look at every structure, like the military, people submit to their authority. That's just how it is. There's a queen bee in the hive, you know. So just having that clear as day, I think, is important. And then you know, also what I learned is the going back to the military thing. The commanders, right? They're the generals, right? The sergeants. If they have the battle plans and they're going over the map, they're doing it in their private tent, and they're conversing and they're looking at the battle plans and they're, you know, disputing it among each other. And then when it's all figured out, then they go into the midst of the 1,000, you know, infantrymen, and they say, we're going north. This is where we're going, right? So one of my biggest mistakes was having those intimate conversations in front of the whole cast and crew. What do you think if we shot this that way? Okay, and then the AD will come up. Well, what if you did this shot? And then the actor will be like, oh, you should shoot it this way. And then that's when we realize, ding, okay, those are private conversations between the DP, director, and nobody else. We have to really figure this out, because otherwise people are just going to be all over the place, and then people are talking and it's this whole thing, and there's just a rumbling noise through the whole studio, and just, you know, it becomes a mess. So clear communication of the hierarchy and having your battle plans locked in.
And you're also setting precedents that we've got this. Mm-hmm. We don't need input from this person. I'm sure they have great ideas, but this is our show. And okay, that's great. I like that. How did you get hundreds of extras for free on an independent movie?
Yeah, I think the thing about our movie, which was special, was that we had such a community around it. So there were so many people that really took to the film, that had stake in it. You know, the skimboarders who had their friends, the people who were, you know, had their companies around and wanted their friends to be a part of it and see what they're doing. And then some of the extras in different areas. So for example, downtown St. Pete, we just had some of our team just going out to people on the street and asking if they wanted to be in a movie. And, you know, they did. Now, free extras, I wouldn't say are the best idea if you can afford extras, because paid extras know what they're doing, and they know, you know, they know to hit their ones and their twos, and they're not, you know, belligerent and yelling or talking or, you know, doing these things that are distracting when you're trying to direct, you know, 4 actors in a scene in the midst of extras. So I think free actors are great to start with, but I think in general paid extras are always great.
Can you talk about the dilemma of not wanting to cast yourself as the lead actor for Off Rip?
Yeah, you know, with Off Rip, I really wanted to focus on making a great film. And I had previously cast myself and directed multiple short films. And I had also led feature films as an actor. And so I knew what it took. And so I kind of had the mentality of, you know, I can only give 100%. And if I have 2 things, I can either give 75, 25, 50, 50, 60, 40, whatever it is. And I had kind of those fears of, you know, not being able to fully be in service to each role at my greatest ability. But, you know, what I found with Off Rip was that it was so in me because I had done it for a handful of years, making, you know, getting the film made. And I'd been with the story for so long, and it was so close to me that it was doable. But I initially didn't want to do it just for the sake of the story. I wanted to really be in service to it and make sure that it was the best. And I did a casting for Chris for the main character, and I watched 400 audition tapes. And I had 2 guys I really liked. Not really, I had 2 guys I liked. And one guy totally didn't fit the part, didn't look the part at all. So, which really helped me as an actor, because I realized that, okay, if I don't get picked for something, it's not because I'm not talented. I just might not look the part, I might not sound right, whatever it is. But then I had this other guy that I liked, but he still just wasn't quite the vibe, and he didn't quite look enough the part either. There was an essence that I needed. And I just had multiple friends and family and cast and crew and, you know, my partners and everyone just saying, you got to play it, man. You got to play it. And so I did.
Without naming any names, but have you watched certain films where the lead actor was also the director and you felt, maybe the performance was this, or, you know, how, because you are spreading yourself so thin, and there's certain projects, I don't want to name them, where yes, it was pulled off, others where, yeah, you can see where maybe it wasn't totally nailed.
You know what's funny is it was the opposite for me. So one of the main things, I totally forgot this until you said this, I didn't even know if I could do it until I had watched, and I don't know why in pre-production I watched this movie, but it was Bradley Cooper's movie where he starred in as the singer.
A Star is Born?
A Star is Born.
Oh, yeah.
With Lady
Excellent.
Gaga. And when I had watched his visceral performance, and I had watched how beautiful that movie was,
Right.
and it hit me so hard, and I had saw that he starred in it and directed it, that's what gave me confidence to do it for Off Rip.
Okay. Excellent example. Yeah. Okay, so it can be done.
Yeah.
Your final thoughts on producing a movie?
My final thoughts. I don't know if I have final thoughts on producing. It's a very ongoing thing. I guess in this moment, producing is hard. It's a lot of work, and I don't know if it's appreciated as much as any of the other jobs. So you have to really have a reason and a passion for it. If you're doing it to try and leverage your career and get something else, you should probably just do that thing, or at least produce and do that thing. So for example, if you want to be an actor or director, you should produce your own films that you direct or act in. But if you're producing just because you want to be an actor and you want to meet more people and you're just going to produce for a while, but you don't really like producing, just don't do it, because it's a lot of work, and it's not gratifying unless you love it. And yeah, it's a very, you know, it's a job that it's almost not even it's very entrepreneurial. You kind of have to have that spirit of someone who just goes and makes things happen. And so if you find yourself naturally being that kind of person who creates businesses or, you know, knocks on doors and gets things happening and gets things going, well then producing might be for you.
Do you like a challenge like that?
Like what?
Well, you know, approaching businesses or prospective investors and putting together something you can present to them.
Yeah, only I like a challenge like that if I'm inspired by the movie. You know, if I'm inspired by if I have this script, this calling, like this thing I've talked about this burning desire to make this thing, I'm willing to do anything for it. So, you know, it doesn't matter who I'm talking to. It doesn't matter where I'm at in the world. If I have a story that I feel needs to get made, it's going to get made.